This episode is brought to you by Peak, the blockchain for real-world applications and home of DePIN. If you think it's time for Web3 to get real, check out their website at peak.network. That's peaq.network. Hello everyone, Daniel from DePIN Hub over here, and today we're here with Ali from Natix, an amazing project, and I'm super happy to have him on our podcast. Basically, the Natix Network is a blockchain-based and crowdsourced camera network that aims to create a real-time map of the world using AI technologies and edge computing. It's a super interesting project, and it's super hot right now on the DePIN ecosystem. That's why I'm so excited to have him in space, and there's a lot of cool things that we're going to get you guys up to speed on the Natix project. Thanks so much for joining, Ali. And can you introduce yourself a little bit for our listeners?
Yeah, thank you, Daniel, for having me. I've been watching your podcast for a bit right now, and I find it very, very interesting. A lot of really good guests, good questions. So it's one of the go-to podcasts I think at the moment that are happening for people to follow. A few words about myself. So Ali, co-founder, CEO at Natix. My background is I studied wireless communication. I have a PhD in wireless communication. As far as I remember, I have been building Internet of Things systems. That's why when one of the first OG DePINs happened, which was Helium, it was right up my alley actually. And I was actually working with narrowband IoT at the time that Helium. So on the R&D side, I was building on narrowband IoT. And when Helium happened, I was like, okay, this is exactly how I see the industry also evolving. And later on, 2-3 years later, or 4 years later, we have DePIN right now. Worked a lot in the autonomous driving industry. Funnily, actually building something very similar to what we're building with Natix Network right now, which is called local dynamic maps. Essentially, we used a lot of optical sensors of the vehicles, like lidars, like cameras, in order to collect real-time data. And when I say real-time data, it means you can only do it with edge computing. We're not talking, when you're collecting pictures and sending it to the data, centers, and then using Nerve to put the stitch the images together. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking literally real-time data for, a second or millisecond latency. And then, a little bit down the road, I joined PricewaterhouseCoopers, did a lot of technology consulting on blockchain and IoT, met my co-founders there. We were building a lot of insane stuff. My co-founder, CTP, he built a ZK identity solution in 2016, 17. So you can imagine, I didn't even know about ZK, and this guy was building with it. Homomorphic encryption and a lot of things along that line. In 2020, we started Natix. So that's kind of the story of me and Natix.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, you guys look like the precursors of a lot of things, right? Like ZK, before people start talking about ZK. I think it started as, 2 years ago, that actually started picking up this idea, like the zero knowledge proof of everything, and then getting quite big. That's super interesting. Thanks so much for the intro. Talking a little bit about Natix, can you provide an overview of the project, and for how would you explain actually for a kid or like someone that doesn't really understand the technical aspects of it?
Yeah, very good challenge. I love the challenge actually. So let me try. Essentially, what Natix Network is, or what we do, is that we are combining, or we're using cameras as well as AI, a part of AI, which is called computer vision AI, to create a digital twin of our world, a kind of a real-time representation of whatever happening in our world. It's also called real-time maps or real-time digital twin. And the camera is completely cloud sourced. So anyone can just contribute with their smartphones, eventually with their car cameras, with their drone cameras. And the AI is what we have developed in the past 4 or 5 years within Natix, which we have filed a patent on. It's a unique technology that is so optimized and so efficient that can run on your smartphone, for example. So this is what we're doing with Natix Network. I don't know what you think for a 5-year-old, but that was my first attempt.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's say you studied a lot about the PhD in wireless technologies. Your co-founder also had a lot of technology into like blockchain, ZK, etc. How did everything evolve to the point of creating the company or the project of Natix? Like I can imagine there's like a compound interest and compound knowledge to the point that, okay, now let's build this like decentralized mapping, real-time mapping of the world. How did that happen?
Yeah. So we started the company 2020, and actually what we worked heavily with was AI and edge computing. Edge computing, I don't know if you're audiences are familiar with it, but it essentially refers to computation, storage, or analytics that happens nearby where the data is collected, right? So in case of your phone, it would be on the phone. In some factories, it would be a little edge computer that is placed in the factory, or in multiple locations in a factory plant. In terms of 5G stations, we have edge computer on the 5G antenna, right? So essentially the idea of edge computing is to reduce latency. You don't have to send the data to the data centers, increase privacy, because many times you don't have to transmit all the sensitive data. You can just do on-device computing and just transfer the insight found from the data, right? Which we're doing as well. Bandwidth, which, if you want to, for example, stream video data or pictures, it's extremely bandwidth consuming. So this was something that I worked very heavily with. It started in the autonomous driving industry using it. Then it kind of propagated into the rest of the world. So we started building edge AI technology. And the AI being computer vision AI, that means the AI that processes the video and images, and the edge computer being mostly for CCTV cameras, right? So that was kind of our service offering. We built this technology, which is the USP of our technology is and was that it's privacy compliant. We filed a patent on it. It even stops the cameras from generating personal information like faces and number plates. It has the highest grade of privacy compliancy, made for the craziest laws of privacy compliancy, which is GDPR. You have heard of it. We started packaging our technology in different products. First one was actually because when we started the company, COVID hit, so it was COVID mask monitoring. It's still somewhere in the Natix crowds monitoring for law enforcers to kind of know where the most crowd is and where the least crowd is, to kind of put their units there. Parking spot monitoring, security surveillance for, let's say, power grids and nuclear power plants and so on, very critical infrastructure. And then we realized a DePIN problem, what I call today a DePIN problem, which is that these CCTV cameras that we were working with are quite expensive. They cost $6,000 per device to deploy. And it's a big CapEx investment for everyone that wants to scale. So we wanted to go from a 30, 50, 100 camera project to 2,000 camera projects. It was a big commitment for our end user. So at that point, we say, okay, why don't we try to create the Helium for smart cameras? That's literally how we kind of made our pivot, because we saw it's not scalable. The end user has to put millions of dollars into building the infrastructure. And there's a better way. We have seen it. It has worked with wireless technology. EY is based on that. And why can't we also do it for camera? And on the other side, I genuinely believe camera is the most powerful sensor you have out there, because when you combine it with computer vision AI, it turns into a super sensor. It can detect with one sensor. You can go into such a depth and you can detect cars, bicycles, pedestrians, roads, buildings, even complex events like traffic congestion or available parking spots. So all in all, this made even more sense to create such a decentralized sensor network, which is a camera that can run AI technology. Today would be today's applications. Tomorrow would be the future generation of computer vision AI, and collect this geospatial data or create that real-time dynamic map that I was thinking about. So this was 2022. By the way, we had revenues from this AI product, customers, and then we decided to pivot into Natix Network, which made our lives much harder. But it was the best decision, I say, that we have taken during the lifespan of our company. And then we went to Techstars Accelerator program, which they're the second largest accelerator in the world, right after YC. And they really helped us with pivoting because they have experience. Actually, they're very good, especially with pivoting. And we went through their smart city program. So they really helped us with the go-to-market strategy and what we're building. And then we graduated 3 months later and we knew exactly what we're going to build, which is this product, the mobile application that we have built. We started working on that. And I think around 1 year later, we launched a product, which is, as you know, is I think one of the most exciting part of our project. It has a lot of traction already. It was labeled, I think last year by the Masari's report. I think we're number 5 in the fastest growing DePIN projects out there, simply because of our smartphone strategy. We're very bullish on smartphones, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
People haven't heard me saying it.
Yeah, no, I believe that, especially nowadays, even an older phone can do a lot of things already on the edge processing side of things. One question that I like to ask projects, can you tell me about the name? Why Natics? Where does it come from?
Oh, so yeah, so we started building this ZK identity solution, which we started building a protocol on top of that. It was, it was for attributes and information exchange, and when we tried to find some sort of an acronym that sounded good. That's kind of where the name comes from. But I'm not gonna go into details because it doesn't make much sense for what Natix is doing today. But yeah, we created a name for our company and we just stuck with it. It sounded nice, so we kept it.
Definitely, it's a great name. I think Natix, it's easy to talk. It's very memorable. It's easy to communicate, and I think works pretty well. But what are you guys making, like before having the idea of smartphones and cars? What are you trying to do, like a stationary cameras, like for CCTV, and then you pivoted
Correct.
into the car?
Correct. The edge device, which we had, was a simple edge computer. It's basically the size of the palm of your hand, usually equipped with either Intel or NVIDIA's AI accelerated chip. And you just connect this basically box into any camera. You can actually connect it into multiple cameras. We are so optimized that this one box was basically analyzing up to 6 streams. So it could be 6 cameras, 1 AI, or 6 AI, different detections for 1 camera, or any combination in between. So yeah, you just have this box that you retrofit into any CCTV camera or IP camera to better say. And we bring the computational capability and analytical capability right next to the device. That was our, product and value proposition. And I think we reached somewhere, a few hundred cameras before we pivot, but then we made the decision to go. We are definitely thinking of going back to CCTV cameras. We do have a plan for it in the future, but it's hardware. It's not scalable. I keep saying that, it's not as scalable. Yes, in the bull market, people go crazy to buy your hardware. I know that. But, for what we are building, it's not scalable. For many business models, it makes perfect sense. For what we are building, smartphone is the first choice.
Yeah, I see a lot of projects that you don't need to buy an extra device, that they grow faster, right? Like it reduces the friction of people trying, at least. Because if I
100%.
don't know your project very well, I can just like give it a try, get like invite code, install the app, and start using it, instead of actually having to go and buy a device.
100%. But buying a device in DePIN is a cash cow, and I mean it. And hey, have I ever thought about, building a device just because it makes revenue, although it's not needed? Yes, I have. And that has been, our competitor is doing the same thing. But yeah, it's a decision that we made in order to, claim that position in terms of fastest growing DePIN project. And I still believe, and I'm still behind my decision.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I believe that some DePIN projects you need to have like a hardware because you're doing something very specific. Like, for
Correct.
example, a Tor, you definitely don't want to run something like that on your phone. I mean, although you can, depending on what you want to do, or if you want to have a LoRa hardware, you're not going to necessarily find an alternative solution for that. So therefore, you can either build your own, which is very interesting, just buy like a Raspberry Pi, buy like a case that you can have with LoRa, but you still need to have that device extra. For pictures, you don't necessarily need it. There's a lot of other projects, like Silencio or Grass, that you can just install an app or like a plugin in the browser. And what we've seen in the past few months is that those projects that don't have that extra friction, they can grow very quickly. They can amass an amount of users that's insane. Like so that's I think a really good advantage over other DePIN projects, right?
Exactly. I think a project that did it very well, by the way, as a hybrid solution is Demo. I know the founders also quite well. They have this kind of hybrid hardware versus no hardware solution. So if your car is able to provide the car data through certain, OEM apps and so on, then, you can actually connect with that. Obviously, I think the data that you can provide is limited, and they have adjusted the reward, if I'm not wrong, according to how much data you can basically provide. And if your car doesn't support that, or if you just want to, get their hardware and have less friction, then with all means, you can also get their hardware. So that strategy, I think it was what I personally also believe, a hybrid strategy where it was possible, it was given a chance to that's why also Demo grew actually relatively by very big numbers as well, although they're a hardware company.
Yeah, if you have for example a Tesla, right? They tell you to like no, don't buy the hardware. There's no need to that. Tesla API is amazing. By the way, Demo was the third episode that we recorded on DePIN Hub podcast, so I would like to invite you guys to go check it out as well. The interview with Alex that explains everything about Demo. And yeah, you guys been talking, right? Trying to build some synergy there, some partnership as well. I think there's a lot of cool things happening between DePIN projects, right?
Exactly. Very, very, very competent, very cool team. I know, I know Alex, I know Andy, I know the rest of the team as well by now quite well. And yeah, we started essentially looking into this thing as a consortium. And we have a common target users, although we have different applications and different end games, but we have a common target user. So that was one of the things, one of the ways that we wanted to collaborate. The second thing is we're also chatting right now. Demo physical hardware presence in the car is a good way for us to validate certain things like location, like the data, and to avoid a lot of these, let's say, cheatings that could potentially happen. Because DePIN, I think one of the hottest topics in DePIN that nobody is yet talking about is how you can build a system that is reliable, data validation essentially, right? Or the metadata that is attached to your data. So we're talking location, we're talking in our case, computation happened right, we're talking that the video was right and it wasn't a dash cam view or something like that on a YouTube. There are all these things that needs to be validated and I think that's where a lot of collaboration can happen. You have a project like Geotech, you can use them in order to get higher location precision and authenticity of your location. You have Demo, which you can kind of do the same thing. And I think for us and Demo, it was a match made in heaven because they're already present in the cars and we have the same target users at the end of the day. So yeah, and we're working on it. So a lot of exciting stuff happening soon as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just talking about your DePIN project, there's so much happening in the background that it's hard to even follow the space, right? That's actually one of the reasons why we decided to pivot from fleet management into the DePIN Hub. Try to actually bring the education and try to bring what's happening in the space because it's just crazy and it's just getting started, especially, right? Going back to your data, the data produced by the cameras, the phones, etc., who will be the customer of that use case on the demand side?
Yeah, so we have a few, let's say, customer categories that we are also, closely, I would say, collaborating with. We're not at a stage yet. We haven't monetized the data, but we're getting much closer to that. And step one for us is, this is what we have also done in Natix before pivoting. We usually build something together with the customer, right? So it's very important for us to stay connected. So one of the customer groups are maps and navigation companies. Essentially, they can grab a lot of dynamic map content. It ranges from mobility objects to less dynamic, let's say, content, which is, let's say, damages on the road surface or potholes, faded road markings, and so on. So these are quite important. They really need this data sometimes in real time. And that's why, Natix can add a lot of value. On top of that, we can just provide coverage in places that is hard for them. Because we're a smartphone, we can just provide that coverage much quicker, much faster. The other ones are autonomous driving companies. We have a very interesting chat over, for example, a few interesting data types. One of them is dynamic traffic signs. I don't know if you know this or not, but there are parts of the roads and some traffic signs that they change dynamically. For example, when you have a construction, for example, because of the weather condition that you have and so on. And this is something that is very hard for these companies to cater. And it's becoming a regulation in Europe, at least I know, that if a car wants to go into level 3 autonomous driving, I think even level 2, if I'm not wrong, that they need to have this kind of data with a certain precision. So they need to assure that they have this kind of data with a certain precision before they can go to that level of autonomy. So this is another kind of customer group. Another one is infrastructure and smart cities, anything related to the infrastructure that is out there. So traffic sign inventory for asset management, any kind of damages on the infrastructure, if there's a broken traffic light, if there is potholes, faded road markings, cracks on the road. These are all kind of very interesting for the cities or for the infrastructure, let's say, company that are in charge of managing these. And then last but not least, we have other location-based services, let's say parking management, targeted ads, a lot of these side applications that have less to do with let's say the core of geospatial data market, but they're also not very small in terms of profitability and the money that they can generate.
Awesome. Yeah. I think that's really good to hear, right? Because I think one of the hardest thing talking to DePIN projects, I was asking, what is the demand side? Because getting hype and getting people deploying, it's okay, is one thing, but then actually making
100%.
the data useful for something else, that's something else. That's the different story, then is usually much harder, right? PIC is a layer 1 blockchain designed to power DePINs. Why do DePINs choose to build on PIC? It's fast, scalable, low cost offer builders are ready to deploy DePIN SDK, and is multi-chain. So when you build on PIC, you're building for all Web3. PIC is home for the fastest growing DePIN projects, with more than 100,000 vehicles and devices deployed, over a dozen DePINs already building, and the world-leading device manufacturers such as Boss partner with them. Think of building a DePIN? PIC has a grand program for DePIN builders. If you're listening to this, remember, you're early. The PIC network will launch in the first half of 2024. Check out PIC's channels for more details and links in the podcast description.
Just one thing, Daniel, I think another very different approach that we have taken towards this question, and we knew it from day one, is that for us, the phase one of data monetization would be back to the drivers. And this is extremely important, and I would say a key differentiator when it comes to other projects. So what we're doing is that we are using the data that the drivers are generating, working with partners in order to bundle them into services like navigation, like parking availability, and injecting it back into the drivers that are using the app, right? This is very important because it makes first of all, it adds more utility for the drivers, right? This is the good old Web 2 way of keeping your users active, even if you're not paying them for their data, which we are, right? But in a bear market, when let's say your token price is not doing well, it's very important for you to have utility for your users. The other thing is that it makes your supply side also your demand side, or your early demand side, right? And then the third thing is that because these applications, let's say like parking, they're network effect applications, they use the data of the network in order to improve the quality of service. They create what we call a flywheel effect. You have heard of this in DePIN, but the flywheel effect for us means that, an example, when you have more drivers, they generate more data, let's say in a certain city, and that would improve the quality of parking service in let's say Lisbon or New York. And when you have a better service, that pulls in naturally more drivers in that area, right? Because they're interested to just download the app and use the parking, not necessarily just because of the earning aspect of it, right? So this is a very strong flywheel effect that, I haven't seen it in many other, actually, I haven't seen it in any other DePIN project. Correct me if I am wrong. And I think this would be a rare case to have, but extremely powerful and potent for a good ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I try to say that a good DePIN project, it's a project that would work without a crypto behind it, right? Like, I mean, Demo, for example, I want to see information about my car. There's some warning in the dashboard I can be able to read from the OBD2 connector. Or Helium, if I want to be deploying actually sensors, it's much easier nowadays to just use the Helium network than go talk to my Vodafone or, T-Mobile and ask for their IoT solution that's very specific and have like private SDKs and it's super hard to connect. One thing that you touched already is about the edge computing. And I would like to hear from your words, how does the edge computing improve in terms of the data privacy, right? One thing is you're taking pictures or sending or streaming the whole data, the picture, the video, etc., to the cloud, or just actually the metadata that you're collecting from the edge computing.
Exactly, the latter that you mentioned. So this is a big topic in computer vision AI, or any project that has to do with image collection and video collection. You are not allowed to collect people's personal information, which is faces and number plates, from the public, especially as a centralized entity, right? And this is problematic. The people don't like it on one hand. On the other hand, the regulatory bodies are going to come after you, and you're essentially, violating GDPR. Just to give you an example, there was a computer vision company that got a 20 million euro fine, I think 1 year ago or 2 years ago, just from the Italian justice system. The rest of the countries haven't yet made their own kind of cases against that. So it's an extremely sensitive topic. Yes, in many jurisdictions, nobody cares, but in many jurisdictions, this is an important topic. And at the end of the day, I think it's just a matter of time. It's a sanity factor. If you want to have a camera project, you need to respect the privacy, and that's going to become more and more common. So that's with why privacy matters. And then we go into edge computing. So in computer vision, we actually have a term. It's called edge vision or edge computer vision, right? Essentially, the idea was one of the biggest advantages is privacy. Instead of you collecting the pictures and videos from the camera, wherever that camera is, sending it all the way to a data center, which is thousands of kilometers away, probably even in another country, right? If not in another continent, then processing the data there. And in this path that you have, and you know how internet works and where you're going, and it can be, a lot of things that can happen to your data, although you might have encryption, which I would challenge. A lot of it is also non-existential or not even good enough. Instead of doing all of that, where you're risking, first of all, collecting people's personal information and risking people's personal information until you're sending it to your data center and maybe you're deleting it later. Instead of doing that, you bring the AI, which is already on your data center, you bring it to the device and you train the AI to look for things that you're interested in, right? Let's take an example. Our AI is looking only for cars, bicycles, pedestrians, and traffic lights and traffic signs and so on. It's not looking for anything else. And what it does is that it looks at the frames of the picture in real time and says, hey, I saw 2 cars, 5 bicycles, 2 pedestrians. The cars were on the right lane. The pedestrians were on the left side. I detected, so some granularity, we call them metadata, and form, kind of create a JSON file from this, which is like a text message, and send this data outside, right? So there is no information about who this was. And nobody can even backtrack this. Like if Daniel was there on that crossroad, or if Daniel was not, there's no way for me to even backtrack that information. I didn't even collect any, pictures of Daniel at all. So it saves you the privacy factor. It's much more privacy compliant. On top of that, it also saves you bandwidth. Just to give you an example, the fact that we are using edge computing technology, and I know this number is true, a heavy user that is driving, 8 hours a day, a trucker or a taxi driver, is using between 800 and 1.23 gigabytes of data per month. Let's say 1.2 gigabytes of data per month. Projects with the same type of users that are collecting images or street level imagery, they are between 50 to 200 gigabytes of data per month, right? That's why you also sometimes have to wait until you're home. Or, it's so expensive that some of the fleet operators, they just put the SIM card in as well. The internet wasn't made for streaming pictures and videos, for sure. This anybody will tell you. That's why people started to build edge computing in IoT sector. So yeah, this is why we're bullish on edge computing as a company since 2020. I have been building edge computing solutions since 2013, starting from autonomous driving industry, which is the same thing, by the way, in the autonomous driving industry. Imagine if the video was broadcasted outside the car and the decision was taking place on the cloud and you just detected an accident. You're dead. By the time that the latency of this thing going back and forth, you're dead. That was another reason that autonomous driving industry said, okay, we need to create a sustainable edge computing solution. And then within edge computing, Daniel, was not so easy of just creating efficient AI on one device. We have this hybrid edge cloud solution. So some of the workload happens on the edge, some of the workloads in general happens on the cloud. So it's a lot of complexities that comes into building a sustainable edge computing solution. It's not just, hey, I have a little data center that I can just push some AI model on. It's far more complex than that.
Definitely. Yeah. Thanks for the explanation. I think it's important for people to know, right? I think a lot of people really care about privacy more and more throughout the years that we see with the internet and everything that's happening. Shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about the tokens. What is that for me? How does the NTXT token works, and how can I earn some tokens by mapping the world?
So by the way, we are renaming the ticker. It's called, we just released it today as well. It's $Natics. It's just easier to remember as well.
Yes.
So
Is it
just a disclaimer there? Yeah, easier
Nice.
to speak. And then so Natix token or $Natics. How can people earn it? We have two ways that people can earn Natix. One of them is by being a contributor in terms of data collection. How? Download the app, start driving, put the phone on the dashboard of your car, collect your spatial data, earn reward, right? The app is more than that. It provides you utility. It has a very interesting gamification, which we just launched 15th of November. And people have shown a lot of love for it, which I'm very, very happy. We worked a lot on it. So it's also, it's a good, interactive, nice experience that the users are going to have within the app. So that's number one. That's way one to earn Natix token. Way two is if you're not a driver, if you're not, let's say, if you don't have the chance to drive and collect data, then what you can do is that you can join our Zeely program. Many people in crypto already know what Zeely is. It's essentially a community involvement and management kind of thing. So we have allocated a certain amount of Natix. That is also going to go on Spice. So we have a lot of good news. We're basically aligning our Zeely within the app. So we want the entire community of Natix, let it be drivers or non-drivers, to be working towards the same missions with the same kind of style and framework. And yeah, so these are the two ways that the users can contribute to Natix and earn.
Nice. And I can imagine later you guys are going to be working with DEXs and sexes. And also if you someone just don't have access, like you said, to the platform or don't have a car, there's a lot of people don't even have cars as well. Might as well just like can trade and buy the tokens because it looks like it's something that has a lot of potential and future, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I would like to hear from your words, what would be the main advantage of using a cell phone for mapping instead of like buying a dash cam, a hardware or something else?
Okay, so advantages and disadvantages of using a smart. Advantages. First of all, what you have in your pocket is a sensor hotel and an extremely powerful computer. All right. You have cameras. I mean, many of the modern phones, they have cameras that you could not even imagine. They're so good right now. Let's take an iPhone or these new guys. I'm an iOS user, so I don't know the latest Samsung models, but
Pixel guy here.
Okay, so Pixel guy. Anyway, all of these phones, they have very good camera. They have communication module. So we're talking Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, cellular. They have narrowband IoT right now. Some of them, by the way, this I know as well. The new ones, they have gyroscope, they have GPS. So a lot of these sensors that it's very important for any DePIN company to have, right? Because in our case, we're also using multiple of these sensors. We just don't use the cameras, but we're also using the GPS to location stamp the data, right? Regarding the computation power, going to edge computing, people might not know this, but phones since 2016, 17, they have AI accelerated chip. If you have an iPhone, you are on Bionic chipset, which is since iPhone 11. Any iPhone has it. If you are on Android, you're running Qualcomm Snapdragon or some similar chipset. And these are extremely powerful. They can run any kind of AI on the device with a very high efficiency, right? So what you have in your pocket is more powerful than a supercomputer that IBM made, 20, 30 years ago. So that's number one. It's a very, powerful device that you have. Number two is that it's extremely accessible. Everyone has it, right? So we have, I think, 8 or 9 billion smartphones. And even if we say, okay, we're just taking the fraction that has AI accelerated chip right now, as of today, we have around 1.5 billion devices with AI accelerated chips, right? So this is an existing market, which the friction between you and them to onboard a node is just to convince the guy to download the app and use your smart. No logistics, no production, no COVID attacking your supply chain, nothing, right? So this is another reason. Another reason is people don't buy iPhone to get a Lambo. The ROI is already there. You buy an iPhone because you can use it as a messenger, you use it for your Instagram, you use it for work, to take calls. So the ROI is already there. And I'm not expecting this iPhone that I bought to buy me a Lambo. Versus when you're selling hardware, you are making those expectations, right? If at least the hardware doesn't pay off for itself, it's going to make the community unhappy. And crypto is about making the community happy or unhappy. So yes, if your token price is doing extremely well, you're good. But as soon as your token price goes down, everything will suffer. Last but not least, you can offer a lot of utility back to the drivers. You have a gateway with the drivers, with the digital touchscreen. And for example, what we are doing, you can gamify the user experience, you can provide navigation, you can provide dashcam services, you can provide a lot of these other utilities through that gateway back to your drivers. Now, what could be the disadvantage with all, transparency? Some older phones, for example, could overheat, right? Newer phones don't really do that, especially if you build an optimized app. You can very much control this. We have optimized our app drastically. If you talk to our users, they used to have some small, problems. But the team was working in the past few months just to optimize on every layer you can imagine. We have tried to optimize, not just from the AI detection, but from any other thing that happens in the app as well. Then the other thing is, yes, with the smartphone compared to hardware, we have a little bit more of a friction for convincing our users to put it up every time, right? This is also a kind of a known disadvantage, but we're addressing, for example, this disadvantage versus a set and forget device by providing driver assistant features like dash cam, like navigation. So make it good enough that they want to put it up there. Gamifications. We just launched missions, as I told you. It has been very, very successful. And yeah, essentially with a couple of other, let's say, approaches that we have, how to remind the driver to put it up and use the app. So, and all in all said, I just wanted to also wrap up is that, yes, it is true that with the set and forget device, you have it, you don't touch it, and there's nothing to do. But we're talking 1.5 billion smartphones. That's the market cap. You're not going to compete with that. You cannot make 1.5 billion devices. Otherwise, you're the same size as Apple. I mean, forget about it, right? And for a good global DePIN to work, if you really want to go global and we don't want to be local, we probably need a couple of 100 million devices, for a lot of applications like ours. So that's why even with the disadvantages that are there, I think there are ways to make them better, to remove them. And the market cap is large enough that it's attractive for any project to consider it.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that this advantage that you mentioned, they are temporary for many reasons. First of all, the phones are getting more and more powerful as we speak, every year. There's a lot of people who have older phones, right? And those older phones, they can be a set and forget device. They can keep it on the car as well. It can become like, back in the time when you had that little GPS they always kept in your phone to tell you where to go. That can be that extra phone. And very soon, those extra phones, the old phones, are going to be phones that already have the AI chip in it. Because, people change phones, I don't know what's the average, maybe every 2 years. Every time on the next phone that they're going to be using, the old ones, they're going to be set in the car, then that one's already going to be ready for all the edge computing, all the things that you guys need. So it's just a short duration problem, and that's going to be solved with time. And this time is also very short. So I don't think it's going to be a big issue on that end. So, in a way, we're going for the kill, right? We're going for like a good project overall. For a closing question, how do you see Natix evolving in the next year, 5 years? How do you see the project evolving?
I think a couple of exciting things that we have. Let's talk about first next year, and then we are going to go even further than that. So we have the token launch. We worked a lot, Daniel, on our token. We took our time. Nobody really saw anything except the total supply of the token and rough allocation chart that was there. But right now, I think we have a very, very strong tokenomics, which we are going to publish it soon, and then we're going to go out. Essentially, we build it around kind of more or less 3 main pillars. And I think tokenomics is not the only factor for the success of the project, but it is important at the end of the day. We build it around 3 main kind of logics. First one is that the token will incentivize people to do physical work. Second one is that we will incentivize people to hold on to the token as much as possible. That's what you want to do in any good project. You want to have incentives to either use the token within your ecosystem or to hold it as much as possible. And a significant portion of the value generated by the network will accrue to the token. And there are different ways how to do that. I think we took a little bit of a different path than a lot of projects did. So stay tuned for the full tokenomics. We're going to have the token launch a few months later than this big launch of the app where the reward system is activated, which I'm quite excited. We just went on with the news release today. And then I think we have a lot of really, really strong opportunities, which we have worked with, and we have built Natix Network when it comes to data monetization, right? Phase 1 of data monetization would be to work with certain partners to bring in driver assistant applications to the app, like parking and navigation and so on, which we have very, very strong partners already on that. So stay tuned. I'm not going to say more because some of the stuff are still confidential from our side, but it's going to be I would say, very good for the demand side of the network. And then at the same time, we are also, chatting with really big giants for providing data to them. So 2024 is going to be a year of supply side as well for Natix Network. So to kind of show that the supply side can be as strong as the demand side. And then from there on, I think my vision and our team's vision is to become the biggest crowdsourced camera network in the entire world for the reason that I mentioned, because camera is the strongest, is the most powerful sensor that you can build on, right? So I think right now, in terms of connectivity, 5G is the most powerful kind of infrastructure that you can build on. And in terms of sensor network, camera is the most powerful infrastructure that you can have. So that's the vision. That's the vision for the next 5 years. We would like to expand to other types of cameras, drone cameras, CCTV cameras, car cameras, a lot of things that we have been building, which is not yet publicized. So yeah, stay tuned. Some of these will also come, by the way, some other types of hardwares will come in 2024 as well. Very, very highly likely.
Amazing. That's super exciting. I'm so excited to just follow up what you guys are building. Where the people that are listening can know more about Natix, Twitter, website, etc. Where do you guys publish all the updates?
Well, go to our website, Natix.network, into the blog section. Any big announcement that we have, we usually have it there. And I think another source of truth to be updated about Natix is our Twitter account. So at Natix Network, if you go there, you will see all of the latest announcement that we have and whatever is hot about Natix Network. Otherwise, if you want to join and earn, I would say download the app in App Store or Google Play, or join our Zeely program. And yeah, I think now is the perfect timing for people to actually join our network, because we haven't launched the token yet. So there's going to be a lot of interesting perks for the people who are still, I would say, not the first stage early believers, which were the guys from last year, but the second stage early believers.
Yeah, of course. Definitely check it out, the website and the Twitter account. Also, I'm going to be putting on the description of this podcast a link for you guys to join the Natix program and download, of course, the apps and the website. Everything's going to be there. Ali, thanks so much for your time. I think it was a pleasure talking to you. I'm super excited for what you guys are building. 2024 is definitely giving me like goosebumps on all the exciting things that are coming. And I'm just super hyped to see where the space is going to go. Thanks so much again. Thanks everybody for listening. And yeah, check DePINHub.io and let's go. Thanks so much. Have a good one, man.